There are two parts to this video. The first part is a short part, which is the price expectation for silver by the end of the year based upon MomentsInTrading's extrapolation. And the second part is explaining how Monte Carlo simulation works. Okay, so the first part. So this channel, MomentsInTrading, he's got his own metrics, his own math, his own statistics, his own methodology. And he says there's a 68% chance that silver closes the year between $14.79 and $17.05. He says there's a 95% chance silver closes the year between $13.78 and $18.31. In the text, I'll type that out. So basically, there's only a 1 in 20 chance silver will not be between $13.78 and $18.31 by the end of this year, this is November 17th, but by the end of this year, 2014, and that's based upon his assumptions and his data and his calculation. And he's using a Monte Carlo simulation for this extrapolation. He has a video, or he has several videos where he talks about Monte Carlo simulation. He talks about what he's doing, and that might be too complicated for a lot of people. So I'll give you an example of what Monte Carlo simulation is by using Scrabble, the board game Scrabble, okay? So I've got the board game Scrabble here, and I've got an opening play. Someone wants to play the word marry, M-A-R-R-Y, on the board. And they're thinking, well, where should I put this word, right? If you put the word for the most points, marry, here, this is 28 points because 4 times 2 is 8, 9, 10, 11, 3 is 14, times 2 is 28 points if you place marry here. But what it does, though, is it gives your opponent a hot spot to use. See this hot spot, the A? They can play axe, 2 directions, get the axe, the X bomb there, and the stuff falls off the board. Or they could play the word marry over here for 2 less points. They could sacrifice 2 points to play marry, and then it doesn't leave a hot spot under here. Although what it does do is it puts the Y here. So if the opponent can use all their tiles and go from here to here, playing marry might score more points for the opponent, even though you're trying to avoid this hot spot. So what can we do? Well, we can pull 7 tiles out of the bag to the opponent and see how their opponent scores. But doing it once isn't enough because, you know, every time there's many possible racks. So what Monte Carlo simulation is you take 7 random tiles of the bag, see what your opponent can do for both plays, and write it down. And you do that 5,000 times, right? You pull tiles out of the bag for your opponent 5,000 times, and you record the result every time. Well, for a person, that's very labor intensive and not practical. But for computers, it's very easy. There's a program called Quackle where you put in M-A-R-R-Y on your opening rack and you do a simulation, right? I did 5,000 iterations. So I had the computer take tiles out of the bag for the opponent 5,000 times. And each of those 5,000 times, the computer saw how much the comeback play would be if you put M here being defensive or put the word here for going for maximum points. And when the first few iterations, like the first few times the computer picked 7 tiles, it was actually better to take the 2 extra points. But doing it 5,000 times, the computer says it's slightly better to be defensive and not give your opponent this comeback play. But the computer doesn't know this. All the computer knows is that it's grabbing random racks, thousands of random racks, over and over again, recording results, and it says, if you play here, your score compared to the opponent's score will be preferable than your score over here because you're getting 2 more points over here, but your opponent could score 40 points, right? Well, they could score 40 points no matter what, but it's easier to score 40 points over here. Over here, it's harder for your opponent to make a comeback play. So that's a Monte Carlo simulation. And with a Monte Carlo simulation, I used 5,000 racks. I did it several times. And each time I did it, the first few times, on average, the 2 points was better. But over 5,000 random racks, every time it was better to be defensive. Now, so when MomentsInTrading is saying he's doing Monte Carlo simulation for the price of silver, he's going ahead in the future and saying we have things that can happen. What happen if this scenario happens? Where will silver be? If that happens, where will silver be? He's got his data, and he's kind of doing like a dice rolling thing, or like I did like a pulling tile out of a bag thing for my Monte Carlo simulation. And hopefully, if you didn't know what Monte Carlo simulation is, you now have an idea. It's a way of trying to guess the future by rolling the dice many, many times and looking at to see what could happen and what is most likely. So that's why I want to say, and I also want to reiterate that a 95% chance that silver closes between 1378 and 1831 still means there's a 5% chance it will close outside of that range. But the more extreme you get, the less likely it is for these things to happen. Of course, he's got assumptions in his model. And if things change, for example, right? For Scrabble, the assumption was that the opponent knew all the words and could find them. What's happening in Scrabble this year is a new dictionary is coming out, meaning there are more words in the dictionary. Meaning this simulation will be obsolete in the future because with different words, it would change the simulation because the opponent would have different ways to score. So the new words could change the simulation. So and also the assumption is that there are no tiles missing out of this bag, right? If the X and the Z were missing out of the bag, I think the simulation would show the 2 extra points is better than being defensive because the X and the Z are 2 tiles you can make parallel plays and make a ton of points with. So I want to conclude by saying that I think that his results are very reasonable. I also like the fact that he gives percent chances because I have learned not to trust anybody who gives promises on price. But when someone says, I think there's a very high chance this could happen, and they give a number, I think that's a lot more plausible because we don't know what could happen. I mean, there could be, you know, a giant meteorite made out of silver that crashes in the earth, and now, you know, this is all wild stuff, but what I'm saying is we don't know the future. You know, and someone who says they know the future for sure might just be fooling themselves or trying to fool you. So thanks for watching. I hope you learned something.